Hey guys, how the hell are you? Time for an all-new unbiased gear review, and today we are going to check out the Grindstein from Klirrton. So I'm very excited to check this thing out. This is something that I have seen a lot of hype surrounding in my Instagram feed, in various Facebook forums, and, just seeing a ton of YouTube videos about it as well. So I'm very, very happy to finally get my hands on this thing and put it through its paces a little bit. But what is this thing? It's got a hell of a lot of knobs. What, are you controlling the space shuttle or something? Duh. What we've got going on here, this is a preamp pedal with a built-in HM2 style distortion as well. And this is designed in conjunction with Klirrton and also with Kristian Kohle from Kohlekeller Studios in Germany. A really awesome mix engineer and producer who does a lot of heavy music. So you probably have heard his work, bands like Eskimo Callboy, Aborted, many, many others. Speaking of Aborted, by the way, Svencho did the graphic art for this pedal, which is really, really cool. But this pedal was designed by Kristian and by Klirrton to be something that is kind of all-encompassing for extreme metal. So reading the description that is on the brand's website, you get the idea that what they are trying to do is create something that can really do it all as far as death metal goes. You've got stuff on here that, depending on what setting, is going to sound extremely modern, is going to sound maybe extremely vintage, like old school 90s Florida death metal, maybe even old school 90s Swedish death metal because of the fact that it's got the HM2 tone that can be blended in on this thing. So really, this is meant to be the most all-encompassing, most perfect death metal preamp ever. Before we dive in and actually check out to see if this is something that the hype surrounding this pedal lives up to, let's first go over the features that are on it. We have a very, very, very sturdy switch that is on here. We have on the top, there is a 9-volt port as well as send and return, as well as the standard issue in and output. Now, a nice bright blue LED light here. The bottom here is a high gain preamp channel that is just gain along with bass control and along with a treble control. There is also a boost knob on here, which integrates in Klirrton's Lichtbringer circuit as a boost that hits before the actual amp portion of this pedal hits. So you have an onboard boost that you can crank up a little bit depending on your taste. Master control over here, there is a phase switch that, you know, gives you a couple of different flavors. I actually found them both extremely awesome, but for different reasons. Moving on to the giant knob that's in the center there, you can see that there is a mix knob as well, and that mix knob is what's going to blend in the HM2 tone, which are these controls on top. There is a grind control. It also has a high control to give you a little bit more of high-end kind of sizzle and grind in that tone. And then you've also got a mid cut, which I was actually surprised was really super useful, not just for shaping the overall guitar tone, but for creating a nice little place to put a bass guitar in the mix of the demo recording. So basically this thing is meant to be super high gain death metal preamp with probably the most control over an HM2 tone you've ever had. At least that's what it seems like. Does it live up to that? Let's plug it in. Let's take a listen. So, since this tone demo is on an item that is meant to be just kind of maximum death metal awesomeness, we are going to be using my BC Rich Terrence Hobbs Warlock, which is loaded with Seymour Duncan AHB1 Blackout Active Humbuckers. The signal from the Klirrton Grindstein is going straight into the Focusrite, and from there the signal is going into an IR loader. And we are using the impulse responses that are provided by Klirrton for use with the Grindstein. In addition to impulse responses, Klirrton also provides a bunch of Kemper profiles that are also able to be used with this, but I no longer have a Kemper here. So we are using the impulse responses provided. The impulse response we are using today is one that is called the Grindstein Blood Path. I don't know what exactly this IR is based on, but it's probably the most meaty sounding out of all the impulse responses that are provided. The rest of them are a little bit brighter, a little bit more mid-range and top-end heavy. But anyways, this is the clean tone. With all the knobs facing pretty much straight up, we are getting some pretty awesome brutal death metal tone. Now it should be noted that these knobs right here for the HM2 portion of the signal chain are not even in use at all right now because the mix knob is down. So first, let's just check this thing out, the actual amp portion. And that's about as clean as this pedal does, because as you can see, the gain for the actual amp portion is all the way down, and it is just still getting a nice meaty, beefy tone. The boost knob now. So quite a bit on tap with that. Okay, so this unit can get pretty loud with that, but hey, we all know what we're here for. We're here for the extreme shit. Let's turn up the mix knob a little bit. Now, do you hear how dialing back the mix knob, it does exactly what you think it's gonna? It brings in a lot more of this tone, dials this back a little bit, and you get something that is kind of a nice amalgamation of the two. Something that is really, really brutal, has just a little bit of that Swedish Buzzsaw in there just to kind of break things up a little bit more. I'm hearing a little bit different coloration of the low end when you dial this a certain way. That's pretty cool. It's like when you turn it up here, not only are you getting that extra distortion breakup, but it's also kind of tightening up the low end ever so slightly too. Meanwhile, when you dial it back here, it's as if it loosens up. That just sounds fucking gnarly. Let's see what the phase switch does in this setting. Okay, so there's a little bit of a volume drop when you bring it down a little bit. So that's probably the closest thing so far to a more traditional Swedish buzzsaw death metal tone. Got all these knobs cranked up here, but then you've got the switch flipped down as well as the mix knob all the way up. So really quick, I wanted to also show you guys what this thing sounds like when you run it through a tube amps effects return, which is what the directions say to do, to run it through an effects return, but with the presence knob cranked. So that's what I've done. My high watt is really kind of the only amp I've got actually that even has a presence knob, so it's going into the back of that. The master control is turned up a bit. It's turned up to about maybe 11 o'clock. Presence knob is dimed completely, and this is the clean tone with no amp. This is the clean tone with no pedal. The signal from the amp is going in through the 2 notes captor, and in 2 notes wall of sound I am using the Angle Double XL cab, and I am using 2 different mics on it in the wall of sound plugin. I'm using the Ribbon Fat 2 and the Dynamic 57, which is obviously based off of an SM57. So as you can hear, there's a little bit of breakup already. But it's not so bad. But anyways, this is what we get. So as you can see, there's a big difference in terms of the amount of low end when running through a tube amp's power section. Having to dial this way back to compensate. Also, it seems like this switch right here doesn't really have as dramatic of an effect as when you're running this thing in direct into the Focusrite and into the IRs. So, overall, my final opinion on this thing, this is goddamn incredible, this pedal here. So, probably the most control I have ever had over an HM2 Swedish Buzzsaw tone. Being able to shape it to my heart's content, not just crank the knobs like you're supposed to do on an OG HM2, but actually being able to tweak ever so slightly and get incredibly different results that honestly allowed me to kind of fine-tune it to where, okay, that sounds like that killer tone I heard on that record. And doing it like that sounds like that killer tone I heard on this other record instead. Because even though they always tell us, hey, for an HM2, just crank everything, not all HM2 tones sound the same. Can we all agree that Entrails sounds different from Demonical, and all that sounds different from Entombed, and that sounds different from, you get the idea. So being able to use just one unit and kind of capture all of those tones at once, I found to be pretty indispensable. And it really does do it all. Like, if you dial back that mix knob so much, you get a really, really nice high gain tone from the bottom portion of the pedal that you can fine tune and tailor to your heart's content. I did try it in a variety of applications. I found, in my opinion, that it worked best going directly into the Focusrite interface and using the IRs that were provided by Klirrton to get kind of mix-ready tones right there in the individual tracks themselves. I also had really good results running this into the power amp of a couple of different heads. Now, that is what this thing is designed for. It's designed to either go direct or it's designed to go into the power amp of an amp. You don't want to run this in front of your amp because it sounds like balls. But if you run it into the power amp, if you run it into your effects return, and if you dime the presence control or get close to diming it, just kind of like have it like set really, really high, you can shape this thing however you see fit and make it mix ready. If you don't have the presence control cranked on your amp when you're running it into an effects return, it does tend to sound really, really muddy. Still could be useful, but I just found I had better results doing exactly what the directions say to do. Crank that presence up and just kind of let this thing rip. But man, I love this thing. I think this is one of the most killer metal distortion boxes I've ever had the joy of plugging into. So much control over this thing. I think what I would really love to see changed, if anything, I would have loved an onboard mid control for the high gain portion on the bottom. I find myself kind of missing that mid control at this point just because I would have loved to have shaped it a little bit. Maybe even do it like a Boss Metal Zone where it's a concentric pot so that the top knob actually controls how much mid and the bottom knob actually controls the frequency range of that mid spectrum. But, you know, that is a small gripe, honestly, for the overall results that I was getting out of this thing. I mean, it works great in a variety of different applications. The super brutal stuff, it does deathcore really good. It of course does the Swedish death metal thing really fucking awesome. I fucking love this pedal, and I would definitely urge you all to give this thing a shot. In my honest opinion, especially considering how much you pay for some of the most awesome preamp pedals out there, it's well worth every penny. This thing was mind-blowingly good. So Arnold, what are you drinking today? I am so glad you asked because I am not having beer today. I am having HEB Diet Twist Lemon Lime because I recently started keto, so I had to cut out beer from my diet for the most part. I'm probably not going to really touch beer for a good long while because I'm getting some good results off of this, but yeah, sorry guys, no beer review in this video. This is fucking delicious though. So that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like this video, subscribe to this channel. There's tons more metal guitar oriented content to come. And remember, take what you do seriously, but do not take yourself too seriously.